Yeah, I think my eureka point was like, I don't really need all these things in my cupboards or traveling around suitcases of supplements and spending. There's no buy-in with supplements. Sure, you buy it, but there's no buy-in with your personality,
Mm.
with what you change. It's literally just a swallow, essentially. There's no effort, and something needs to change in your biology, and it requires effort to get a result. I don't work with vegans. I haven't got time for them. I'm too busy to basically go through that whole shenanigan of the agenda with meat and plants and all that kind of stuff.
Hello and welcome back to the Smarter and Harder podcast, your home for 1 cent solutions to $64,000 questions. I'm your host again today. My name is Dr. Scott Sherr, and it's a pleasure to be back with all of you. So today I had a really fun and cool guest hanging out with me in a coffee shop in Nicaragua, doing his health optimization thing with his clients, Ryan Carter. So the Vitae is his name on socials and Instagram, and Ryan's been a friend for a long time. I met him in 2019 at the Health Optimization Summit over there in London, I should say. And Ryan's a guy that just loves knowledge and has created a practice for himself in Nicaragua, where he has a daughter and he just built a house. But his internet went out yesterday, the day before we recorded the podcast, because of a thunderstorm. So he was recording with me from a coffee shop. But it sounded great. He's got some cool technology to be able to do that, and a lot of fun to have him on the podcast. So here's a brief bio on Ryan. He is a health optimization medicine and practice practitioner. He's been actually trained in our program, Health Optimization Practice, as he's a practitioner and not a physician at this point. But he's been doing this along with multiple other things. He actually has a license in nutritional therapy as well. He has multiple methodologies that he uses: root cause analysis, personalized nutrition, emphasizing circadian rhythm alignment, including light exposure and sleep hygiene, incorporation of breathwork, movement, biofeedback, and more. So he works with clients all over the world on optimizing their health, and he does it all remotely. And so in this particular podcast, I started off with asking him about an email that he sent out to his list that I'm a part of, that I get every week, about the 5 health mistakes that everybody makes, that he made himself, that he's hoping that you don't make as well. And one of the biggest ones is information overload. So we talk about how to approach that as a consumer of information. We also talk about how to approach it as a physician, or in my case, or in his case, as a practitioner, on how to kind of navigate that information, not only to learn it yourself, but also how to distill it and to bring it to your clients in a way that's digestible for them. You're meeting them where they are, for example. And then from there, we talked about supplementation. We talked a lot about when it's appropriate to supplement, when it's not appropriate to supplement, how if you live in certain places at certain times, you may need to supplement depending on the situation, and other times he just takes magnesium on a regular basis, and that's all he needs. From when he looks at laboratory data over time and how he watches people over time, you actually see how less supplementation is likely necessary. When you look at the clinical history, you follow people, how they feel, and objectively. So he uses laboratory data, but he also uses conversations and understand how people are doing and clinical histories to really direct him, which I think is really great. And we also talk about being a vegan, how Ryan won't see vegan patients, and I typically won't either. And it's non-negotiables. And also talked about the bioenergetics, the aspects of plant protein versus animal protein, potential deuterium depletion as being one of the major reasons why the bioavailability of animal proteins is higher than plants. We don't really know. Talked about supplements, powders like protein powders, whey versus non-whey. We talked about pea protein and plant proteins and when there might be uses for these things in some circumstances and not in others. And there we talked about fasting. We talked about redox before you detox and how that redox changes throughout the day with light exposure, with melatonin production, et cetera. And then at the end, we spoke about how Ryan's developed this practice as a telepractice, and how he does it, how he frames his time, and the ins and outs of his practice. So this is a really fun podcast to record with Ryan. I appreciate his time and all of his efforts to promote health optimization, medicine, and practice as he does. So I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, here is my podcast with Ryan Carter. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe below so you never miss an episode. We'll see you. Hey, Ryan, good to see you, man.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
I'm excited to have you. It's kind of been a long time coming. And, there's a number of things I wanted to have you on the podcast for. Number one, I think you're a great wealth of knowledge, doing things differently than most people out there when it comes to being a practitioner, and a lot of great nuggets and pearls to share, working remotely, especially with clients. And you've been doing this a long time. You and I first met in London 2019, stayed in touch, got certified through the Health Optimization Medicine and Practice nonprofit. You're doing that along with everything else that you do within all the mix. I know you have your own swing on things and your own health journey to kind of get to where you are and how that's kind of colors everything. You have an email every week that you send out as well, which is great. I highly recommend everybody sign up for Ryan's well thought out emails every week on things like apple cider vinegar was one, and certain types of food you can eat to help optimize nutrition and nutrients and things. But Ryan, you're in Nicaragua. It's a cool place to be, except when you have to be in a coffee shop for a podcast. You never know what's going to happen. So I want to talk about, to start off with, there was an email you sent out a little while ago talking about 5 health mistakes that you've made over the years that you're hoping that other people don't have to make because of it. I thought we could take maybe one at a time and kind of dig into it and take some circuitous side tangents and things, but start with any of those 5 that you can remember, and then we can
Sure.
rock it from there.
Well, I just pulled it up, so we can do it in order because
Okay.
again, I don't remember sometimes what I say or said yesterday. So the first one's running before learning to walk, essentially. Maybe that's just in our modern day of information galore. We hear so many things, what everyone else is doing, what you could be doing, but that might not be applicable for us right now in our reality. So back in the day when my health was a complete shambles, in the toilet, I was trying everything, just grasping of different concepts, and whether it was coffee enemas, colonics, mercury detox with the Cutler protocol, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which I got trained in to be doing.
I remember it.
Yeah, basically all the biohacks that you hear the gurus, the experts say, and just like giving it a punt. And again, it didn't really work. Nothing really stuck. The only thing that really worked was me learning none of those things worked. It required more of a sophisticated approach. And yeah, health is a bit more complicated than that. But with all that insight and all the years of learning this, the actual actionable take homes are relatively simple, but you have to acquire all the wisdom to get to that level, basically. Otherwise, you're just in that mess. You're trapped and you think it's this, you're bouncing from one thing to the other. You're just listening to Huberman Lab. Maybe you're just listening to this podcast, or maybe you're just listening to the Detox guy. You just get trapped in this sort of tribe or cult. And that's not a personalized approach and thinking as an individual. So you have to break free of that and have 0 Fs essentially. And that leads on to the second point, which was asking for help. That's super, super important. And especially I would say as a male man here, we don't like to ask for help sometimes. We don't like to share our feelings, our emotions, our insecurities. But again, that comes in the territory of having poor health. Your confidence, your motivation, your capacity to share things is completely rock bottom. So it's sort of like a catch-22 when you're in that situation of looking for, okay, yeah, this one answer and not sharing anything and getting actually decent advice from somebody's viewpoints, basically, with more knowledge and wisdom for you. And again, I see this a lot being a clinician now and looking back. I can see so many traits from other people where I was, obviously not the same, but it's just like it's a continuous thing that I see or just observe in the health and fitness space.
Right. So when you talk about is information overload, what I think is important, right? Like when you were trying to figure out your health, you were looking at everything and trying to put everything together, and you didn't know how. As a practitioner, when you're trying to put all these things together, it's also very difficult, right? Because like, what do you get trained in? How do you get trained in it? What do you start with? Like, how do you get optimized in the sense of like your practice? But like through that journey, like talk to me a little bit about that, right? Because I know you've done a lot of your own work. There's a lot of things we can do with people all the time, right? There's a lot of things we want to do. Like if I see somebody tomorrow, I mean, ideally I'd want them to change like 75 different things that they want to do, right? And so like, how do you at that point take that information overload and like turn it around in the sense that, like, how do you decide, what to do, what not to do? Like, what is your framework now when you work with people so you don't overload people while you're working with them on that side, if that makes sense?
It's about understanding the person, their true desires, their true intentions. It's understanding the why, essentially. Their live life. What do they want to live life doing, essentially, and being and feeling? Understanding that, and then basically you will know what do they have the capacity for. Are they ready to do 101 things from the get-go? Or again, understanding their routine, their work commitments, their family life, their party lifestyle, their fitness aspirations. the potential disabilities, but financially as well. How is that really going to be fitting, and where are we going to be focusing and prioritizing on, basically? So it's just understanding that, and then basically making a roadmap of where I would think, maybe not actually share that with the client, but where I
Sure.
think
Yeah.
we would be going and heading towards, and what that would be looking like, basically with the idea of peeling the onion. There's various layers of the onion, and we want to peel them. We're going to be very, okay, are you actually eating okay? What is your posture looking like for the day? How are you holding yourself up? What time are you going to bed? What time can you wake up? How much light exposure are you getting? Have you consumed sufficient water? What's your mineral status like? Do you actually have the capacity to exercise like the way you're doing? Or are you burning the candle at both ends? Are you taking too much advice from a personal trainer and not enough advice from like nutrition and lifestyle medicine? Just basic things like that. Me, I don't get too caught up with like, okay, the absolutes and 100% of things. Again, I'm relatively like 80, 90%, 10%, 20% here and there. Again, I would not put a lot of scrutiny out of every single detail within their kitchen.
Mhm.
I would be really emphasizing the lifestyle, the easy wins with like light, waking up, sleep times, changing the light bulbs. For me, they're very easy things to do. Easy enough where some clients would basically be instructing their helpers, their maids to basically do that. They just need to purchase it basically. Or even like some of my clients have cooks. Again, that's a very simple change for them. They just want to get told what to do. But even in it, that's actually a problematic client, in my opinion and experience, because they're not really buying into
Right.
the essence of changing themselves. They would like the idea of things, and it's easy to do. They're not embracing the ins and outs of it, basically.
I understand what you mean.
It's just figuring out where the client is, what they're capable of doing. And again, that dopamine response of, yeah, things are moving in the right direction. I can see finally there's some light at the end of the tunnel, basically. And sometimes that can be a little bit backwards at first, where it might seem we're actually going one step backwards. I got like terrible diarrhea. I don't know what's happening to me. I'm just like crapping all the time. Or I'm
Mhm.
peeing a lot. Okay. Let's not rush to conclusions. Let's stay relatively focused. Let's maybe change subtle things. Maybe reduce the magnesium down. Maybe we don't need to go too hard with that, and things will settle. Oh, I feel my body just a bit calmer, the clarity of my thoughts. We're gaining a little progress and a bit of trust within our relationship. And then we can add another piece of the puzzle together, basically. Health is a bit like a puzzle. My job is basically to help you put pieces of the puzzle together again.
One of the things you also mentioned in this email you sent out was supplements as the answer. Supplements were the answer. More supplements is better. Less supplements is not good. You can't
Yeah.
out supplement kind of things. What was your evolution here, and how do you also approach it with clients, right? Do you start off with, like, for example, when I work with people and I'm really trying to clean up their gut, I might just start out with a gut cleanup first before I go ahead and do like additional things. I mean, so you can think about both sides, like your own personal experience there with it, and then how do you kind of frame it with clients, or what's your typical framework there when you work with people in supplements?
Yeah, I think my eureka point was like, I don't really need all these things in my cupboards or traveling around suitcases of supplements and spending, I don't know, $200 on Amazon or whatever I was buying my supplements from, basically. Again, honestly, right now, I just take magnesium. Having said that, sometimes I would try, again, methylene blue. Sometimes I would try tyrosine. Sometimes I would maybe take some B2, and that would be some understanding around my genetic variants, such
Mm-hmm.
as riboflavin with the MTHR. And understanding, I live in Nicaragua. I don't know if everyone can see me, but again, I have an amazing suntan and I'm in the sun all day, basically. So I'm actually degrading my riboflavin even more so. So therefore, with the genetic, maybe there's some actually due diligence where I can take 2 capsules of riboflavin spread across the week, because again, maybe I don't want to eat liver every single day, or maybe I can't find a good source right now. But again, the eureka moment was like when I was with my friends and I was just like seeing his charade of supplements in his cupboards, and I'm like, this is just crazy. And people just sending them supplements to people, and then understanding more about the health industry, where
Mm-hmm.
again, it's money orientated for the
Sure.
most part.
Yep.
Obviously, there's some brands that do have good intentions, that do the homework around safety and forms and everything else. I actually got a new newsletter coming out soon, an article, The Dark Side of Supplements. And whether you buy it from Amazon or
Yeah.
The majority of people are just like, okay, I listen to this podcast. Maybe that
Yep.
works. I'll just buy some, try it for 20 days. Who knows if it's working or not? Here's something else. Just throw that in. And then it adds up to this big stack. And then some people got like 30 stacks. Again, a client yesterday from Hong Kong, she basically is taking resveratrol because one of her doctors said, yeah, it's because of the estrogen, the alpha beta receptor is influenced via resveratrol. And again, there is actually some truth there. And I was like, well, you know what? You don't really need a $60 supplement per month. You know what you can do? You can actually just have fresh orange juice, which the polyphenols or the bioflavonoids in orange juice can actually have the same effect on that expression. And even then, she's actually not consuming sufficient iodine in the first place, which is probably on the priority scale more important of the expression of estrogen receptors. So again, that's where you can get lost in the supplement world, not
Right.
realize the first principles of how these sort of things really work. And even then, the client on first principles, well, she's waking up at 9 o'clock, she's eating her breakfast indoors. And it's like, okay, why don't we just focus on that and actually get your, like how heme works in your body better from sunlight exposure, get that down. And maybe then, yeah, your estrogen or how it's working would be improved. There's a bit of mixed within like personal and clinical world there.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's a great description of kind of like the nuances there. But I mean, I guess that I would sort of reflect back to you, is it, do you think there are reasons to take supplements? Like if you live in middle of London versus in the middle of Hong Kong versus you're living in Nicaragua, right? You have different needs, right? Depending on the situation.
So I don't subscribe to some people's like, okay, just sunlight, drinking good quality, like, or deuterium depleted water and like grounding all day is enough. Sometimes there is need for supplements. And again, we can see that whether it's in blood testing or using something like the HTMA, which I'm not really too much of a fan of, or like we know the metabolics test.
Right.
Again, even looking at the microbiome per se, with some questionable marks around that, we can see, okay, do you have enough B5 or do you have enough B6? And again, we don't need to be adding like 200 milligrams of B6 as an example. We can just titrate, start slow, obviously promote food first.
Right.
Again, and that's not rocket science. Okay, we can prioritize organ meats, seafood, shellfish, if that's applicable. If there's no issues with digestion, obviously, because that is going to be a bottleneck in the food selection that you're going to use. And again, just go from there. But again, I personally wouldn't use like a multivitamins with clients. But again, there is definitely occasions. Someone's under stress, i.e. I'm a new parent, my baby's a year and a half. So again, it's a bit settled now. But again, there were sleepless nights. I need to work. I want to study, I want to get shit done. So I would use maybe creatine, or I might use tyrosine. And that has shown to be helpful when you have sleep disruptions. Am I going to use that as a band-aid? No, I'm not going to be ignorant of that. Sleep is number one, and obviously improve my daughter's sleep hygiene. And with time, it's going to get better. But again, I can use supplements in that occasion and not get deluded that supplements are the answer. So again, there's a flex of how to use them in different situations, in different people. But again, there's obviously many, many contextual variables going into that.
I think that's a great way to describe it. And I also agree with you. I end up seeing a lot of these people that have taken all these different supplements from all these people that they've heard on various platforms that they thought it was going to be good for X, Y, and Z.
But the problem with supplements is that there's no, and again, our mutual friend, Dr. Ed, knows this as well. There's no buy-in with supplements. Sure, you buy it, but there's no buy-in with your personality, with what you change. It's literally just a swallow, essentially. There's no effort, and something needs to change in your biology, and it requires effort to get a result. And it needs to come with the package of everything else. And unfortunately, most people don't like to do effort. They don't want to change certain things. They like to wake up late. They like to scroll on their telephone before bed. But the idea of being healthy is appealing. So again, supplements is like, oh yeah, I can just take this. Oh yeah, I can just take this, and I don't need to worry about the other cofactors going into seafood, as an example, or the carnitine, or everything else going into the animal meats.
200 supplements a day, so you could be vegan, kind of thing. That's
exactly.
There's some people that are very big platforms talking about these kinds of things.
Exactly, to fit my dietary beliefs, because again, my diet is my religion, and this is what the evidence says, and how I've basically shaped the evidence to fit my beliefs.
Yeah, this is a question for you from the practitioner side. Will you work with people that refuse to do some basic things, in the sense that, like, do you have like certain criteria? Like I certainly do. You know, the way I work with people is that I won't work with people that smoke, for example. Like if you smoke cigarettes, like I'm not going to work with you. Now, there might be an exception here and there, depending on the situation. Do they have a certain amount of buy-in that you would require as a practitioner? I mean, that's what I'm getting, right?
For sure. It probably would be vegan. or had the capacity to maybe have some organ meats,
Okay.
that would be fine. Whether that's in pill form, I could probably stretch at that. And again, I learned that from another person, a nutritional therapist in the space called Elliot Overton, who you might be familiar with as well. He's the man about B1. I don't work with vegans. I haven't got time for them. I don't need to, I'm too busy to basically go through that whole shenanigan of the agenda with meat and plants and all that kind of stuff. It's
That'd be
very
better off,
difficult.
right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very difficult. Again, it is possible. And if they're willing to take things on board, for sure. But again, I, as a practitioner, as a principle, integrity, I wouldn't recommend people taking 15 supplements a day per se because they want to be vegan. But again, even saying that, I would also believe if you live in a place like Nicaragua, you actually have more capacity to be a vegan. So again, if someone's living in the Northern Hemisphere, London, New York, LA, as an example, yeah, that's actually going to be trickier for you.
Yeah.
But you being a
Yeah.
vegan in Nicaragua, there's actually some feasibility there.
Gotcha. Yeah, this actually raises an interesting question, right? I mean, I talk about this with my clients all the time regarding not wanting to really work with vegan clients for similar reasons, but maybe we can dig into why. What is the challenge that you find in the sense that, hypothetically, you can get all your amino acids from plants, can't you, Ryan? Like you can get them all from plant sources. You should be able to get all your micronutrients mostly from plants, mostly. So, but what's the problem?
It's illogical that you can take a pulverized powder from wherever it's come from
Sure.
and think that's the same as eating a flesh of an animal, basically. And even then, the imprint of how that thing's been created by like God or evolution or the universe is
Right.
completely different. And we're talking down on the microscopic level of how these hydrocarbon bonds basically are formed and the sort of ultra weak photon energy that it has within these bonds as well. So again, that goes over a few people's heads, but that's where I come up short. If food is beyond a supplement, food is basically this matrix that we have no understanding of yet. Basically,
Right.
the science hasn't really gone there or explored that yet. Again, what we can see is food obviously contains energy, but within that energy, there's information. And this information is basically void in supplements in a way it's essentially been created. And you can even make the case even from food-based supplements, because again, it's basically in like the greenhouse or using sprouts. And in this artificial environment, it hasn't had the physical laws in place on it. So therefore, it's essentially artificial. That's okay, synthetic. Again, methylene blue is sort of quote unquote synthetic as such. There can be a time and place for that in need. But again, it shouldn't be the crux of the belief. When we look at diets and people in sort of tribe and cults, and it's also for carnivores as well, they're mentally caught up in themselves, basically. It's a very interesting headspace to be in, basically.
Well,
And
everybody loves a tribe,
there.
Everybody loves the tribes and loves that, that feeling of belonging. And it happens whether you're vegan or carnivore or keto or whatever,
But
right?
when I hear that, it's like alarm bells are ringing when they have it in their username or it's in their bio. I'm like, okay, obviously don't know a lot about health if you're still on that sort of level yet. Most practitioners know what I'm talking about. Where I am, there's this big spectrum. You could be certain times of the year carnivore. You could be certain times of the year maybe more vegan. There could be scarcity without encouraging fasting, more lower carb as an example. There's a seasonal approach mixed into each sort of diet you want to go to.
Sure.
And then obviously on the scale of the individual, depending on their age, depending on their physical activity, and obviously the modern life, that's basically that personalized nutritional angle with some testing and some quantitative data to actually be a bit more on target.
Pardon the interruption. This episode is brought to you by Transcriptions, makers of precision-dosed, physician-formulated, and pharmaceutical-grade formulas in the form of a buccal turkey. For this episode, check out our blue Catechine. It's a combination of nicotine, caffeine, CBD, and methylene blue to increase your focus, productivity, your ability to just get things done for about 3 to 5 hours. No come down, no crash, an easy rise, low-dose synergistic ingredients. Check it out at transcriptions.com and save 10% on this order by using code POD10 at checkout. Now back to the show. So I love that part. So like the quantitative data part is important, right? I think that it's good to have a philosophy, but it's also good to be flexible at the same time in the sense that if you get too stuck in these tribal worlds, it's very difficult to see the forest from the trees. And then you don't really know how you're doing unless you're testing things over time, which is what I know you do and I do as well.
As the years go on, I actually do less testing. And that is respect to maybe how I work with clients and the price that I charge. because again, they're getting that value where we wouldn't need to do extensive testing. Example, a client might be living in mold. They do a VCR test, which is looking at the optic nerve, if it's a bit disturbed with how they see contrast in lines. I got a video tour, I can actually see some damp marks. It comes with a history of a mold or mycotoxin person, a client. Again, why would I need to do a mycotoxin panel right there? Spend £300, $400 on that test. Why don't we actually get the ball rolling with that? Adding a binder, improve their redox, their charge, improve their mitochondrial flow, improve energy, because without energy, we can't even detox.
Yes.
Add in a few things there. And then maybe if the budget is in a friendly place, we can test in 6 months down the line if it's still an issue. So it's a bit of a completely different approach to most practitioners, especially the practitioner I learned the most from in my health journey, basically, as well, who improved my health. He's already tested at the start, test 3 months, test 6 months. And again, it obviously burns a hole in my wallet. And I didn't actually have money at the time to do that. So I actually didn't do that. I did that at the start. But once I actually felt great, I didn't test mycotoxins again if it was a problem. I didn't test my mercury with quicksilver again, even though I was eating 1 kilo of tuna per week, because I don't need a validity.
1 kilo?
1 kilo of bluefin tuna raw per week. But again, it was on top of other issues making mercury a problem. Yeah, it is a lot of tuna, but in theory, looking at certain meta-analysis, it shouldn't actually be a problem. But it's only because my system's broken, it created a problem, basically.
I see.
And again, there's a lady called Lily Nichols. She's a dietitian, but big in fertility. I was reading an article last night, actually, and she's pointing out there's several meta-analyses that show the more fish that you eat, there might be mercury, but actually there's no adverse effects in neurological function, basically.
Sure.
In actual fact, you actually get better health outcomes, basically.
Right.
And again, I saw this today, sort of social media guru, a holistic doctor, basically, who's like, I don't eat seafood anymore because of the heavy metals and the potential plastics and such. And I feel like you're such an idiot, basically, for saying that, because you obviously haven't got an open mind and you actually haven't read the data out there to say such a thing, basically, as such a blanket statement, and think that you can just take a fish or a supplement to replace that. That's a harmful thing to say, basically, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But again, a bit sidetracked here.
No, it's good. This is what it's all about.
It's, again, that recommendation of fish. I wouldn't tell every single client to eat a lot of fish, basically. Definitely, I'm a big proponent of the marine food chain because it contains certain different things that animal foods don't have. And evolution biology, where you go way back to how life happened on this planet, we sort of originate from the sea, basically, as an organism.
Right.
And that obviously explains why we have salt in our blood, as an example, and the desire for salt. But again, how the thyroid and the brain, how that works and how we evolved out of Africa, basically, it was very pivotal around seafood. And that's brought forward via a guy called Michael Crawford, or Sir Michael Crawford. And again, he's got a great book out there.
What are the nutrients in seafood that you don't get in on land animals?
So again, there's obviously some crossover. There's abundance more zinc, selenium, iodine, B12, copper, the DHEA in substantial amounts. There's obviously the AA, glycolic acid, as well, which is important. That obviously is a booster per se in omega-6, but again, it's vital for brain function, basically.
For sure. Yeah, those are the major ones.
But again, it's also going into that with, okay, what else does seafood contain? Well, at this time, there was a lot of viruses. There's viruses in the sea. So again, we're also consuming a lot of viruses. And obviously, like you might know, a lot of our genes is a bit of junk, and that is actually from viral assimilation, basically.
Yep.
And where does that come from? So again, there's a lot of interesting dots and connecting this up. And I would argue, again, you can test your omega-3 status. We can see that on a test with a fatty acid profile. And again, it's astonishing as well to see sometimes it's low DHA, really, really low DHA. And they're eating a lot of seafood, but it's just so low. And again, there's no high mercury, there's no high arsenic. And even surprising to me, the omega-6s, the DGLA, the GLA, they're usually rock bottom as well on the fatty acid profile. And again, you can't resolve inflammation without basically that effect there as well. Because again, it's a bit like a seesaw. You actually need inflammation and pain to heal. So you need to stimulate that. So again, you might just be too anti-inflammatory. And again, I remember back in the day in my health journey, I was necking fish oil left, right, center. And I was just like listening to, what's his name, Mark Sisson at the time. a few of his podcasts and Ben Greenfield, yeah, you need your omega-3 at like 1-to-1, like the Eskimos and stuff like that. And like, sure thing, I done it. I was like nicking fish oil for that result basically on a blood test to prove the point. It sounded good. Okay, do that. You get that outcome. You need that result. Take the thing, boom, 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 and it's achievable. But again, did it help my goals? Did it improve my health? I don't think so. Because again, it's not in that package of that whole food. It hasn't got the iodine to protect the DHA. And that truly makes it very unique and special around the cell membrane.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And again,
I mean, these are all great points. And I love how you've dove into a lot of the things here, are big things that are like small, but you pass them very quickly, which is because you do this for a living. One of the things I wanted to go back to is that you talked about those protein powders, for example, and then getting them from plants and then getting all your amino acids and sort of the bioavailability. We actually know from studies that plant amino acids are less bioavailable in general than animal amino acids, even though they quote unquote look the same, right? And so this is where it comes to that sort of bioenergetic, like electric thing that you were talking about. So I just want to like dive that in. Like there is some research there.
Yeah, well, number one, so when you think of plants, they actually contain more deuterium. Some plants, depending on their C3 or C4 photosynthesis capacity, depending where they are around the world, that's going to have an effect and it's going to have more traces of deuterium. Now, again, is that going to explain the differences completely? Maybe not.
Right.
But a share, because a large amount of protein is actually hydrated, essentially. It's actually containing a lot of hydrogen within that. And the animal protein that is low in deuterium, and again, that's well known. And again, on a small scale, like that water, the hydrogen actually influences many things when we're talking about our metabolism. So again, you can change what we're referring to, deuterium, which is basically just an isotope of hydrogen. So it's the same thing, just with a small little difference with a neutron, basically.
Right. So if somebody that wasn't doing the analysis to look at deuterium status of the amino acid, which they didn't do in this particular study, it was just the same amino acids coming from a plant versus the same amino acids coming from an animal, but the animal ones are just absorbed better, right? And I think deuterium is one of those stories, that we just don't understand why that is the case. But it seems like animal protein is a great example of the experience that we have when we have the animal proteins versus the plant proteins and feeling better and actually seeing those numbers change on the various testing that we do.
Definitely on top of that, whey protein might be better, but what if someone's got a sulfur issue within their gut? So again, this is the messy world of personalized nutrition.
Right.
Yeah, I've actually recommended my fair share in certain clients with pea protein as an example. And they might not necessarily be vegan, but the pea protein can have some function in certain cases, basically. Working with like a world-class tennis star who's got a bit of digestive issues. Oh, again, we're going to go with pea protein. And yes, kind of similar, not compared to whey. But again, I would also say if your gut is healthy, your health is healthy, whey protein is going to be the best one going forward. Because again, you get a little bit more bang for buck with like the lactoferrin that's contained in there. And again, other things that we just don't know. But again, at the end of the day, yeah, I'd always say whole food opposed to eating a protein powder. But again, a protein powder can have modern day function. In my travels going back a few years, I'm not just going to eat anywhere because again, it's usually going to be fried or who knows where the chicken is from or how it's living. Again, I'm going to go safe bet. I'm going to have my like quote unquote grass-fed protein powder with a little bit of yogurt and get that down the hatch. And again, function there. So again, it's never really throwing the bath out with the bathwater with anything because it's all just a tool and it's up to the clinician or again, the general public to sort of work this out. And like I said, working with someone helps you bridge this gap, basically.
Yeah,
it's a bit like, I have no clue about finances and money and savings and Bitcoin and blah, blah, blah. So again, I would actually hire someone to help me with. Again, same thing, I can't design a website. Okay, I'm going to get someone to help me design a website with my ideas and put it to work. With the health, it's slightly different because there's so much health information out there. It's relatively easy to think you're an expert because you listen to a PhD as an example. And a PhD advice, in theory, is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But on our level, with someone with several issues, it's just not good enough. So you just need to basically pass things out. And unfortunately, people with poor health, they slightly make poor decisions. And again, I know I've been there. I've made many poor decisions, like I just said before, doing colonics, doing coffee enemas. Again, I'm getting really angry and hitting my dog back in the day. And I'm just doing crazy things, not being a nice person. That was another trait of like having poor health. But again, it was slowly changed it around. Yeah, I don't need to do that. Yeah, maybe it can help. But I'm from coming from a position of power, of wisdom, I don't need to do that basically.
Right. Yeah. So Ryan, one thing I wanted to chat with you about, I like this phrase, and you kind of you mentioned it very briefly as well before. It's like you got to redox before you detox. Okay. And then I would like you to break that down for us a little bit as to what you mean there. And then also maybe you can color in like any words you have about fasting and some of your philosophy around fasting these days. Those are kind of the two major topics I wanted to chat with you about next.
Yeah, so fasting would be influenced by your capacity of your redox, and what we were
Exactly.
describing there. For the practitioners out there, I'd recommend to see a few YouTube videos of Doug Wallace, and that's obviously mentioned on the curriculum on the health optimization, the course basically. And Dr. Ted, he actually puts a few slides of Dr. Doug Wallace, and actually goes into the detail without mentioning it that there's actually a net negative charge on the inner mitochondrial membrane basically. So it gets negative. And this is basically the redox, the negativity, because we're going to be more electron rich there basically. So electrons are obviously negative and protons are positive. That's basically the sum of things. But again, what goes into that? Well, we're looking at, okay, your melatonin levels. What goes into that sort of approximately is vitamin D. Ironically, low vitamin D, low melatonin, maybe on a saliva test, that's actually a big risk factor for having cancer, as an example, because that's going to be a big reflection of your mitochondrial health on a systemic level. On a tissue level, not so much, basically. But on a big system network level, that will do. But again, the melatonin is going to be super important because it's going to be basically recycling, regulating apoptosis and autophagy. And again, it's a bit like, you can take a supplement, but do you think a supplement's actually going to have the same effect? Now, again, you can find some studies to show that taking melatonin can help, it can improve performance, it can offset jet lag. So again, I'm not going to say don't take it in certain situations, like when, I don't know, you might be flying. My client yesterday from Hong Kong, she was taking it because someone told her it was good, and she doesn't know that, again, it's just a reflection of her health, basically, like her vitamin D levels. And again, this client actually had a cancer on her face, basically. But again, her vitamin D levels are in the toilet. The redox is going to be a reflection of your ability to generate energy, but that is not the be all and end all. And that's sometimes where you can get caught up in the calorie in, calorie out world. And sometimes in maybe going too far in the organic acid test, in thinking, okay, high citrate levels, high organic acid is great all the time, and it means there's a good electron flow because these enzymes or these acids are being expressed well. But again, maybe certain times of the day, that electron flow is a little bit dormant or slowed down, basically. And again, understanding the work of Dr. Jack Kruse, who, again, I definitely recommend the practitioners to listen back to that previous episode you've done with him.
Dr. Ted interviewed him a long time ago. Great episode.
Yeah, good interview. And he explains, and I think he actually broke down in your podcast, maybe the Huberman stuff a little bit when he was interviewed by Huberman on Rick Rubin's. He's basically explaining that we have nitric oxide, we have vitamin D, and there's actually receptors of both of these influencing the mitochondrial function. And in the middle of the day, these actually slow down. And that's influenced via the light coming through and influencing certain semiconductors within our body to regulate the electron flow, basically, of the mitochondria. Now, on an organ effect and a cell effect, that might be different in different tissues of the body, basically. Different organs or systems of the body have a completely different metabolism from the brain or the skin or the liver or the gut. So again, where does that fit with all these
rhythms
tissues,
as well,
basically? So again, it's a very big mystery to sort of unfold. That might make sense if we're talking about the skin or if we're talking about the endothelial cells who are going to be absorbing a lot of the light. Saying that, the ATP production, what we know, we're looking at like red light therapy, it shoots up basically. And using methylene blue, it shoots up. So again, is there actually a time where we want a big pulsation of oxygen, of ATP in the creation of water and carbon dioxide, which are other byproducts? And that water sort of plays back into sort of the plant animal protein equation of deuterium, because the water that we make is deuterium depleted. It's very unique. And that water actually absorbs light differently from deuterium water, basically. So stepping back, like that turns on in the morning, and then it also turns on when the UVA and UVB is going in the afternoon. And maybe where you are around the world, there's no UVB. So that might mean you actually are more tied to making ATP at certain times of the year
Got it.
opposed to the UVB.
Because you
But
don't
again,
have the light
also,
exposure.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
also coming from my interpretation of that and the wisdom and seeing and feeling this myself in the summertime, when that UVB is there and there's abundance of food because it's the summertime or autumn, again, we're going to be eating more basically and have the capacity of putting more fluff basically. And that's when we get more fatty acid synthesis, more
Sure.
cholesterol synthesis. And again, we're priming our body basically for hibernation,
For
like
winter.
wild
Yep.
animals, like
Right.
what we used to do. But again, because our modern day, it's all crazy. We're using shade, we're using SPFs, we're not getting sun exposure, we're eating foods from around the world. And again, how do we dissect this? How can I represent what I just shared there with a study? Again, basically, I can't, because the modern human or even like the clinical trial would have no confounding factors for that. So
Of
again,
course.
this is just an idea, but it's going to be led from a client
Right.
perspective. I
Right.
can't share that on social media and be like, this is the way and this is how it's
Right.
done.
This is exactly what I
Yeah.
do every single day, and this is exactly what's going to work.
Yeah,
for you,
or
right?
everyone
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
everyone needs to do this, and this is how it works, because it doesn't how it works. This works differently in Nicaragua because there's UVB all the time here.
Right. Exactly.
And again,
Yeah.
even where you live, there's an elevation.
I
Yeah,
have more
so
UVB
that,
throughout the year as well
yeah,
because of my
yeah,
elevation. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think what you're really talking about here is sort of like the true nuances of redox, right? And how this really does shift depending on so many different factors, and many
yeah,
that we don't even think about from a practitioner perspective, not thinking about how light, water,
yeah,
and magnetism are affecting these and how the flow even changes throughout the day. So if you're looking at somebody's testing and it's done in the morning versus if you test it in the
yeah,
afternoon, for example, those things are going to
sure.
shift.
Well,
And
even I would say if someone was doing grounding before the test compared to like not grounding, that would actually potentially have a reflection of, say, a blood smear test, essentially, with how
yeah,
the clumping of the red blood cells would work together. And again, you can see that on research studies or people's experiments showing
mhm,
on X as an example. Again, I mean, we're just maybe an ignorant of what we don't know and how
right,
these cofactors affect what we see and what we think might be going on. But again, as a clinician, I don't let test or test numbers dictate my approach. Absolutely. I'm obviously
sure,
speaking to the person, looking at what they tried before, how they responded to things, their body language, the way they're speaking, the way they're thinking, their lifestyle,
yeah,
everything basically. It's all going into it. I actually had a discovery call from a client a week ago. I don't sell myself to clients, but the expression was a hard sell to sell myself and my approach to him, because he was looking at this other person called the Detox dude or something like that.
yeah,
And the way this Detox dude had it down, it's like, okay, you test from the start, we see your toxins, then we get the liver moving, then we do the guts, then we add in the binders, and then we retest again. And again, I can see that point of view. I can see, yeah, okay, it makes sense. I'm like, again, I can understand why people gravitate towards that. But I was again explaining to the client, well, that's very well and easy said and done. But again, how does that change when you stop doing that? Or what
right,
they
right.
don't really
This is
understand the
the
limitations of that.
yeah,
And for
yeah,
my approach, it's a little bit hard for people to grasp, because
right,
well, again, Huberman talks about the light. I'm doing the light in the morning, and yeah, I'm eating whole food, and yeah, what you're saying, yeah. But again, they don't understand my plan of action. Like, it is years and like hours and hours and hours, and honestly a fortune of money going into my education to share my opinion
yeah. I
and
mean,
to
well, yeah,
have my
yeah.
nuance, which very few people with a lot of nuance in this field.
So you talked about redox before detox, right?
What's the phase 1 detoxification enzyme name?
CYPs, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
what's the CYPs?
I can't remember the name. It was like the 650,
It's a number.
450. Yeah.
What's the purpose of the 450?
It's the nanometer wavelength of light. Yeah.
Because they were more activated via that
Right.
light with the
Yep.
expression of them. And again, what is that light? That's blue light.
That's
So
blue.
again,
Yep.
most people think sunrise, oh, it's abundance in red light. Well, in fact, the first light comes up is a pulsation of blue light. So the blue light is actually what's stimulating the 450 enzymes. Now,
Yep.
does
The
that blue light
cytochromes, after all. Yes.
affect your liver directly? No. The effect is bidirectional, and it's affected from your skin and your plasma, which is communicating with your inside of the body from obviously hemoglobin and other heme-based chromophores or semiconductors basically going through your body, or proteins as such.
Mhm.
So again, they're communicating with your liver and even your gut, where there's also CYP 450 enzymes in kidneys, to wake up, get the show running. And again, that red light comes in shortly after that blue spike, and that's energy production. And you can't detox without energy. Like, energy and order
Right. That's it.
That is
You
the
said
be
it.
all end
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
understanding health. And that's, again, not my words. It's actually Doug Wallace's word. There's an image on the slides of the health optimization medicine practice of energy, order. And I think there's something under entropy and
Yeah.
understanding entropy,
Entropy and
basically.
extropy. Yeah. Yeah. Part of the interruption. This episode is brought to you by Health Optimization Medicine and Practice Association, a nonprofit organization training practitioners how to optimize health rather than treat disease. For this episode, check out our gut immune system module. How do you optimize the gut? You have to look at inflammation, maldigestion, metabolic imbalance, infection, and more. You learn all of this in our course. Check it out at homehope.org and save 10% on this module or any module of certification by using code podcast10 at checkout. Now back to the show. I think that's the key we just said there. I think that's like the real clinical pros. You can't detox without energy, right? If you don't have the energy to start off with, there's no detox that you can do. And
Exactly.
again, there's lots of different ways that this all plays out, depending on the type of tissue, depending on what's going on cellularly, more holistically in the sense of, looking at it from a holobiome perspective. But what I find interesting here is that people get so stuck on various aspects of this. I appreciate you bringing up the nanometer wavelengths of light here and energy. But where's their aha moments typically? You've been doing this remotely for a long time, right? You've been in Nicaragua, you were in London before, but seeing people remotely. Like what I want to kind of dig into in the last little while here before I ask you some rapid fire questions is like, how do you become successful as a remote healthcare practitioner? How can you engage people on these kinds of things, on Zooms and not be physically with them, both from the perspective of helping people, but also just some of the mechanics of how you do this on a regular basis and keep it so that it works well for you and for them?
Learn a lot and listen to different people's perspectives without basically having their names on my head. And again, there has been times in my journey when I've been down like the cruise coal as such, and sun like get me sun on my body all the time and stuff like that. It's layer upon layer, assimilating. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Sometimes it's better to zip this and open these up more a little bit. There's been times when I've been learning too much. I don't know, 8-10 hour days of doing a course, reading a book, listening to a YouTube's podcasts, round the clock basically. And it's just like information overload at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But again, with learning, there should be some structure. There's courses now. There's e-courses. There's probably too many courses, basically, in my opinion. I don't know, other practitioners out there or other coaches, you want to listen to people with the nuance, with the context. That's where the magic is. It does take some time to acquire that, but you need good health to get there. You need a really good brain to think partially and not to get offended. And especially in the world of social media, to have thick skin. But you also need to be planning for the future. Now I'm speaking for other practitioners here. You got to be thinking about your business plan. You got to be thinking, okay, where do I want to be working? Who do I want my clients to be? Because again, that's going to dictate your wording on your website, the look of your website, how your persona, your dress code as such. Again, most of my consultations, I'm topless basically. So again, that might not be an ideal for most clients basically. But again, some clients I obviously show respect and do wear t-shirts. Yeah, but so again, you need to get an understanding of that direction do you want to go in. That's obviously having a big effect on your life, the life you're living. What do you want with your life? Again, are you a mother? You got to look after your children. So again, is this just going to be a part-time thing? And that's totally cool. There's many amazing part-time practitioners out there. You don't need to be a full-time practitioner to make decent money, but also enjoy what you do. I think we get caught up about with our ego. Yeah, I need to be the best practitioner, but we also want to, we don't need to know everything. You don't need to go into the detail maybe that I shared or about the metabolic pathways and the organic acid test. Again, clients don't need to know that kind of stuff. You just need to understand the principles around that per se. And you only have so much bandwidth in your brain to take in and absorb, essentially. So again, as clinicians, yeah, we do need to make a living. So it's only right to divert some of our time and attention and invest in that part of our education as well. But again, offloading things like an assistant, basically. I do take on clients for mentoring as well as clinicians. And I'm like, oh, please just get an assistant. It will save you 2 hours every single day of pointless admin, basically. Just please get an assistant, I don't know, from the Philippines or someone like that who speaks very good English, who's amazing. Reward them with bonuses for every client they bring through, like train them up.
Yeah.
Again, social media stuff, please do not do video editing. Don't spend too much time on social media. It is going to destroy you. And again, I'm speaking with someone with like 500,000 followers on Instagram. again, it's horrible for your body and for your mind.
Yeah.
Get in, get out.
On the side of working with actual patients or clients in your case, what do you feel like some of the best, like maybe clinical pearls that you found the best way to work with people remotely?
Yeah. So in my case, I can have an open schedule. So again, where I am, my time zones are actually really favorable for the US clients, but also for the UAE, the Middle East. For the UK, it works pretty well. Australia, I actually have quite a few clients from Australia and New Zealand. Again, it works, but again, I open up my schedule within reason. I think being very clear with how you work within your structure, sharing there's some unknowns. We can use tests. I'm in the game to not make money from testing or supplements.
Sure.
So anything that I recommend is going to be discounted price. You're paying me from my brain, taking a test and making some side change for that. I don't really like that, but some practitioners do that. I can respect it and see that. You need to share value into your potential clients. You need to show the way you sort of think, that you can think, that you're just not everybody else. Okay, just take electrolytes and take that vitamin D and just eat liver. And yeah, that advice is out there. I mean, like Paul Saladino's talking about that advice. You need to be thinking better than these people, basically. You need to show off your skills. And again, maybe that might me calling him out, basically, sometimes to say that his head's up his arse. That he doesn't really know what he's talking about sometimes.
He doesn't know what he's talking about some of the times. He's never seen a patient or a client in his life. So
yeah, I've had several clients come from him from consultations with him. But again, his intentions are good.
Of course.
Generally does want to do well. And I'm sure he helps many people and gets them on their path. And again, I've had many people like that in my experience, whether it's Mark Sisson or Rob Wolf or Dave Asprey. Again, I don't really care much about Dave Asprey right now, but I'm grateful to him for putting me in this direction, basically. But anyway, I think being confident, sharing, making it easy for people to understand, being very clear. But again, maybe 5 years ago, I'd probably say like 50% of my income was just going into my education, literally just like doing courses. A lot of my time reading, but it was also in the same time I was reading on the beach or working on my health. And again, beautifully, it was like this, essentially. It was a match made in heaven, how that worked. And lucky right now, that allows me, again, to take 2 hours out of my time to have this conversation and podcast. I've built a home in the jungle. I'm peace in my life right now. I've started a meat company in the UK, which a bit like Paul Saladino, but not quite. It incorporates organ meats into things like ground beef and sausages and burgers.
There's a couple companies like that in the US.
Yeah, a bit like Force of Nature, but a UK
that's
version.
Great. Yeah, so I like all this, Ryan. I think that you really you've figured out yourself the way to go. And so the thing about as a practitioner, everybody's going to find their own way. Some people will find that it's much better for them to see people in person, and that's totally okay. 100%. Some people find that it's good to have a hybrid. Actually, I like to see a couple people in person. It just kind of keeps me honest by having to 100%. Be in front of somebody, and you do see more and feel more. But if you stay long enough on a call with people, you can also get there too. It's kind of like the Joe Rogan effect. If you're on a call for somebody for 15 or 30 minutes, you only get like a little bit. But if you get them longer, you can actually feel and see what's actually happening on like a much higher arc. And then if you see people over long periods of time, but dude, we're getting to the end of the podcast, and this has been great as a kind of like a tour de force of like little tidbits of kind of how you think, some of your knowledge base, how you've gotten there, your practice. There was one tool you were talking about that records your whole conversation. What was that called that you were talking before we started recording?
Yeah, so
you don't have to take any notes, right?
Yeah. So again, I think we discussed this before. It was basically when I do a lot of online consultations from around the world, I talk a lot, or there's a lot of information being shared. I can't remember everything, as well as other things going on, or emergency with my baby, or the dogs or monkeys passing by and stuff like that. So basically, or maybe the internet goes and the conversation goes. So again, it's a program called Crisp, which basically reduces the noise as well. So right now there's people in the background here, there's music playing, but maybe this program's filtering the majority of it out, but it's also note-taking automatically. It doesn't work like other programs which require the participant to basically acknowledge, but it does it in the background.
There's a lot of programs that are coming out like that, which I think is great. So Ryan, before we finish up, thank you for telling me about it, because I wanted to check that one out myself. So we ask all of our guests, what are 3 ways that we all can live smarter, not harder? All of your experience, all of your life. It doesn't have to be through health and wellness. It could be through having a baby. Whatever you say, it's all fair game here, man.
Okay. So I'd say having a baby is the ultimate expression of life on this planet, basically. It's basically the creme of the creme and the ultimate like signature of being human, basically. Ultimate experience. And it's like a mark of, wow, I'm a human and I'm healthy, basically, because I can create another healthy human. I'd say efficiency, which that means is basically managing your time very well. So just being efficient with everything that you do, that means, yeah, you could be like, okay, I'm all over the place, busy, but being efficient with your time, where you can take in the moment, which you can savor, that you can turn off your phone. So again, valuing your time and being efficient with your time is super
Efficiency,
important.
time, that's important.
Smarter and harder, like being close to nature, there's no escaping it. Again, it will catch you up. That is the ultimate key for health and wellness, in my opinion. And again, I see it with my own eyes. The people giving out the majority of health are like concrete jungle. And I can just see deficiency of connection with nature. The deficiency of connecting with nature, basically.
Yeah.
Again, you can live in a city. Again, and don't get me wrong, you can live in a setting and be totally healthy. But again, what does that mean? You go to a city, I'm sure there's parks, there's rivers, there's canals. You go away for the weekend, camping. There's so many options for that.
Yeah. Those are great, man. So having a baby, ultimate expression of life, efficiency, time, and nature deficiency. I love those. So Ryan, tell people where they can find you, more information about you, at least sign up for your email list, if anything, because you definitely rock on some good topics there.
So levitae.com, spell LIVEVITAE.com. Again, I'm on X at Levitae UK or Instagram Levitae. The sign up to a newsletter you can find on my website or on the social media handles. My meat company is called ofood.co. I'm a co-founder of that. Come and hang out with me in the jungle in Nicaragua with some monkeys. Enjoy the thunderstorms, which is happening right now.
Okay, I'm glad we got you. It's been a pleasure, man. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you at some point in the future, maybe in Nicaragua, maybe if you get yourself on a plane and come someplace in the United States sometime soon too.
Yeah, potentially in Austin at the next Health Optimization Summit.
Okay, well, have a great day. And we'll check you soon. Thanks for being here.
Take care.
Thanks so much for tuning into another episode of the Smarter and Harder podcast, where we give you 1 cent solutions to $64,000 questions. This is a fantastic podcast with Ryan. I had so much fun just kind of digging in some really nuanced topics: circadian rhythms, light, redox, supplements, animals, plants, vegans, carnivores, keto, the tribal cultures out there, and his clinical telepractice and how he does it all. So if you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe below so you never miss an episode of the Smarter Harder podcast, and enjoy this. These are fun for us to record for you guys and ladies and gals. And so if you have any questions or comments, please let us know how we can make them better, and we'll see you next time.